Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. This feels sort of surreal because about a year ago, I decided to start a podcast in my house. I've had my brand, TheCheekyClean, for a few years now. I spent over 12 years in the corporate chemical industry, behind the scenes, global manufacturing, working with the largest chemical companies all over the world. And simultaneously, through that time in my 20s, I lost both my parents to cancer. And when I tested negative for the BRCA gene test, I had an awakening and decided to put the two worlds together and start learning about ingredients, start learning how to make more conscious choices as a consumer so that I could shift that trajectory and learn more and live better in their honor. So I started The Cheeky Clean as just a blog sharing how I was shifting up, making small changes that were really powerful over time. And I started to build a community. And most of that community is right here in the Cleveland area. And I became fascinated with learning about the resources here. Other areas, I lived in California for about 6 years when I started the brand. And wellness, health, holistic resources almost seem like they're on every street corner there. And I wanted to find the same access here in Ohio when I moved back and then make that accessible for my local community who I was growing and living alongside. And it just started as getting to know people in the area and using them as resources for myself, sharing on my Instagram page. And I became fascinated with others' stories on what was driving them to bring this kind of healing to the Northeast Ohio area as well, and thought a podcast is a great way to connect and have raw, real conversations, which is where the name came from. And over the last year, I've learned a lot. So this feels like a milestone to be live in person. I always say that alone we can learn to be healthier, but together we're truly a force, especially in the Ohio area. So thank you guys for being here and being willing to learn. It's really so cool. And thank you, Jeremy, Dr. Jeremy Watson. Fun fact about Jeremy and I, we met on my podcast. He came on the show last August. And I called my friend Lisa afterwards and said, that's the cheekiest man I've ever met in my life.
The Cheeky King.
The Cheeky King, yeah. I called
Mm-hmm.
him. And we just really hit it off. And we've built a really beautiful relationship since. And it's been super cool to align in purpose, not only professionally, but in our relationship. So this feels just so cool to talk with you guys today about ways that we can all learn more and live better. So, Jeremy, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thanks for everything you're bringing to the area, just like I said when we met in August.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I never pass up an opportunity to talk about myself for an hour, so yeah, thank you.
So what I wanted to start with today is some insight on disease in general and what continues to blow my mind. We've gone to quite a few conferences over the last year. I'm in school to become an integrative health practitioner. And one of the things that continues to inspire me is that 93% of disease is not genetic. So that means that our diet, our lifestyle, and our environment has a direct correlation in our ability to prevent disease and live longer and happier. And oftentimes we are maybe confused into thinking that this might just be our fate, or like I felt with my parents, I'm probably going to get breast cancer too because now it's in my family. And even if you carry the BRCA gene, there is a huge opportunity for you to make really small but hugely powerful shifts that can dramatically shift that trajectory. One of the things that I had Jeremy on the podcast initially for was to talk about this alternative type of healthcare, because many times, many of us, because of these environments that we're exposed to daily, are dealing with many symptoms. We're having these issues come up and we're going to the doctor, and the traditional medicine system is meant to treat those symptoms. But those symptoms truly are an effect of an underlying root cause. And that's where functional medicine really starts to address how to not only help the symptoms go away, but understand how to keep them away long term. So, Jeremy, I wanted to start with just that in general. What symptoms are common that you're seeing in your medical practice? You're a chiropractor and functional medicine doctor. What are you seeing on a common basis that are these symptoms that oftentimes are correlated back to a root cause that you're able to help your patients navigate?
Yeah, so a lot of variety, lots to unpack in that. From a musculoskeletal standpoint, I do still have a large portion of my patients are coming in with back pain and neck pain. And that, a lot of times is a perfect example of root cause medicine versus symptom treatment, I love this example of you're driving your car down the highway and your check engine light comes on. The check engine light is a symptom of some kind of underlying problem that's going on with the vehicle. Taking a piece of duct tape and putting it over the check engine light, it covers it up so you don't see it. It's like, and that's a lot of the medical approaches. We're just covering up that symptom. We're trying to treat that symptom without looking at that underlying cause. So a lot of chiropractic is that, we're trying to determine what's that underlying cause, whether that might be a disc issue or a sacroiliac or some kind of joint dysfunction, and fixing that instead of here's a pill for your pain, here's a pill for your muscle spasm, here's a pill for your, nerve impingement, and trying to fix those underlying causes from a musculoskeletal standpoint. In the functional medicine world, it's all over the board. So I would say like the top two reasons that the functional medicine patients come in, they have difficulty losing weight is a big one. There's stubborn weight loss. And a lot of times that's underlying hormonal issues. Thyroid problems are huge, and it often gets not tested properly and overlooked. And then again, it's kind of like, what is this underlying cause to that dysfunction instead of, oh, this is high, so here's a pill to take the rest of your life. It's like to even ask that question. And in a lot of mainstream medical practice, it's not even a question. It's just like, here's your diagnosis, here's your pill. Okay, well, why isn't my body functioning correctly? Like, I don't know. It's just not, it's just here it is, So that's the difference with functional medicine. It's like, let's try to dig a little deeper, test a little deeper, find what are some of these underlying causes, Another big one, probably the biggest one, is just fatigue. People are just tired all the time. And again, it's just like you can only drink so much coffee, and if there's underlying issues like, something I see a lot, it's low ferritin levels, it's there's B12 and D3 and like all these things that we can test for. Thyroid, again, there's so many people that are dealing with these autoimmune conditions that aren't getting treated properly. Fasting insulin levels all over the place. I mean, it's, omega-3 levels. Like there's all these things that we can check, get that black and white number and realize, okay, well, yeah, there's a reason you feel like crap all the time because, your body has no iron or, it's everybody's unique, but it's without testing, you're just guessing and trying to, get through your life, like feeling like garbage all the time, so.
And it's not a one size fits all. I think that's so important to understand is we are all bio-individual chemistries of our body. And so having a doctor who's willing to run the right tests in order to find out what specifically is going on in your body and then help you navigate what that root cause is so powerful and so unique. What I find mind-blowing is that traditional medicine, doctors are not even trained in nutrition. Yet here we are saying how important that is for longevity and for our ability to become empowered to reverse disease.
0 hours of nutrition training in medical school.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah. They're changing it now. There's some good political movement going on to improve that. But yeah, you talk to any medical doctor and just ask them that question. They'll say, they take zero nutrition.
It's just unfortunate. And I think another area that's also missed is the type of tests that are done. So I know because I've done blood work with your facility that you guys are looking at different panels than what are being looked at in traditional medical systems. So what are some of those like core panels that you're running when people are coming in with fatigue or gut issues and things like that?
Yeah. And so it's a blend, and everything we're running typically now is mainstream. You go to Quest, it's blood counts and metabolic profiles, but my standard panel has 95 markers on it. We're not pulling just a CBC, just a TSH, or you're complaining of this, so we're going to pull this one marker. We have vitamin D3, there's B12, there's intracellular folate, there's intracellular magnesium. It's like a good example. You see this magnesium level on your typical blood work, but it's the serum magnesium. It's less than 1% of that magnesium's in your serum. It's mostly intracellular, so we test it intracellularly. Looking at the folate levels. And then, and thyroid is always one of these like, oh, well, your TSH is normal, so your thyroid's normal. It's like, well, we're pulling, TPO antibodies. We're looking at thyroglobulin antibodies. We're looking at free T3, free T4, seeing how much is circulating. I pull full hormones on all my patients. I want to see that total testosterone, free testosterone, estrogen, progesterones, cortisol levels, DHEA levels. That was something I just had a guy in not that long ago. And, it's just like his DHEA levels were tanked out. And it's a simple fix, it's an inexpensive fix. And, I just ran into him. He gives me this big hug. He's like, man, I feel like $1 million again. It was just like, but who's testing his DHEA? It's like, you're not going to get that without looking at some of these deeper levels. I have a full blown omega-3 panel that we look at omega-3, omega-6 ratios now. And that was one, I was in Nashville at a big longevity functional medicine symposium. And I was talking to this guy, MD, PhD, Mayo Clinic, like cutting edge researcher with Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline. And he was telling me, he's like, omega-3 index. He's like, that should be standard on every blood lab. Like that's your biggest driver of this, chronic inflammation in the brain. And it's all diet related, it's just all the seed oils that people consume where you have this, massive amount of omega-6 with limited omega-3. So I pull that on every patient now and we can see exactly, EPA, DHA, look at linoleic and arachidonic acid, not to get too sciencey with it, but it's like you can see what your numbers are in black and white. And it's a very simple approach to improving it.
And helping people understand the why behind it. Interesting fact about the omega-3 we learned at the Parker conference that we attended in Vegas earlier this year from Dr. Rhonda Patrick, who's a great resource. Guys, follow her. She's awesome, pretty well known. And she was saying that there's been new studies that have come out that have shown that omega-3 deficiency is as detrimental to longevity as smoking cigarettes. So it's these deficiencies and these toxin loads that we are exposed to or not exposed to on the nutrient side of things that are really driving a lot of these test labs that you're seeing in blood work. And, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because I know we've talked about it, I'm very passionate. I have a collagen product, so I'm very passionate about helping educate on supplements. I think less is more, and quality supplements. For reference, the supplement industry is one of the most underregulated industries. So how I started to get into the business was at one point I was selling paint additives into supplements, and I was mind blown by what was allowed to be in these products. And I thought it would be a great way to start educating consumers and give something tangible to show them this is how it feels and this is what a supplement should look like when it's a quality brand. But in the holistic integrative space, there is, I think what I'm seeing just commonly is this supplement fatigue a little bit, where people are starting to feel that there's so many supplements being recommended to them that it's almost hard to keep up with them and they're not sure which ones to start with. And I think something that we're passionate about in the way that we live our lives in general is starting first with the basics. And so I wanted to ask you about what standard things can we do in our daily life and our daily routine that can really help shift that healthy lifestyle approach and these labs alongside supplements.
Yeah. So I'll start with the supplement one too. And it is very overwhelming and very just like decision fatigue for people. One of the problem with the supplements is that people are in this mindset of a take this for that. It's the same as the pharmaceutical. Oh, you're tired, take this. You're overweight, take that. And you have a headache, take this. And the way the body works, we're made up of cells. And if the cells aren't healthy, then the body doesn't function properly and you have all these different symptoms. So at the ground level with supplements, for me, there's only a handful of basic supplements that are research-based, evidence-based, research proven, basically good for everybody across the board. And it's basically, taking a good one daily multivitamin with methylated B vitamins. Some of those have an adequate amount of vitamin D, but just, cover your bases with a good multi. The D3, you have to keep optimized. This time of year, it's getting easier. The sun's out. Getting skin exposure can help boost that. I just had a African-American female I was talking to with like literally under 10 vitamin D levels. It's like critical. You want to keep those vitamin D levels in that 50 to 70 range. Simple, inexpensive way to optimize health. It's a steroid hormone. So you have your multi and your vitamin D. The omega-3, like we were mentioning, most people are going to want to supplement with an omega-3 daily. to get those levels up and improve those ratios. And magnesium, it's just like so well researched, helping with stress, with sleep. It's very important at the cellular level for a lot of different things that are happening. So it's kind of like checking those boxes. Creatine is a big one. That's like a big buzzword now. The collagen, of course, for giving the body those substrates that it needs, but these I was actually at Target the other day, which I hate going to those big box stores, but it's just like the supplement aisle. And it's like, my God, there's got to be like 150 different supplements and everything's that take this for that approach. So it's just like making sure at a cellular fundamental level that your body is functioning properly. And supplements I put is a very small part of overall health. It's nutrition, it's exercise, it's sleep, and it's stress management. It's just like there's these pillars where if you can just focus on these main pillars of health, it's that 93%, like that you were mentioning. And there's another 93% stat that 93% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. And it's like insane. It's not a hard thing to achieve. This is just basic blood sugar regulation. It's just a few basic parameters that 93% of people don't meet in this country. So it comes down to, and we could get into it a little bit. I mean, it's basically like eating whole foods, so people get so overwhelmed with nutrition, and especially in the era now of TikToks and Instagram and influencers and that, and it's all these like, carnivore, which I thought was a joke when I first heard of it. It's like, oh, I only eat meat. And now it's like, I have patients coming in like, oh, I'm carnivore now. It's like, I'm keto now, I'm paleo, I'm Mediterranean, I'm this, I'm that. And it's like, stop overcomplicating it. Eat real food. It's like, it's not that hard. What does real food mean? It's one ingredient. It comes right out of nature. Fruits, vegetables, eggs, meats that come from healthy sources. 98, 99% of the meat is conventionally grown. Avoid that. There's plenty of local farmers that are grass feeding their animals, and you can buy it very inexpensively, locally, straight from the source. Stock your freezer, buy it right here. Nuts, seeds, things like this. Like I round out a little bit just to keep my protein higher with some cottage cheese, Greek yogurt. My body doesn't react poorly to dairy. And it's like, that's it. It's 80, 90% of what you eat should be whole, unprocessed foods, and eliminating all these sugars, these flours, these seed oils, and, obviously the fast foods and everything. But, I think it's just something people really struggle with is overcomplicating it. It's like, we eat very delicious, filling foods. People get in their head like, oh, what's left? I just eat a salad now. I just eat a bowl of raw broccoli. It's like, no, there's a million combinations of this. It's just sticking with prioritizing protein and eating a lot of vegetables, and snacking on fruits, nuts, seeds. It's like, just eat a whole food diet and stop going on all these different, fads for, it's not, and it's like even using the word diet. It's like, I don't want to go on a diet. It's like, I've never been on a diet. We're just like, I stay lean and healthy all year because I just eat whole foods all year. It's just what I do. I don't go back and forth, go on it, go off of it. And just rarely have, at least like if you're going to have one of these treats, it's like a once in a great while thing. You're not drinking, a can of Pepsi every day or eating, donuts every weekend or whatever. It's like you just want to stick with the whole foods, prioritize that, eat it every day, and just make that your lifestyle. You know, it's not that hard, I think, and especially like people think like, oh, it's so restricting, it's so hard. It's really not. I don't feel restricted at all by not, going through a fast food joint or something,
Totally. Yeah, I think it's also this, we've been programmed to have it be difficult for us. And that's one of the reasons why I started the education on ingredients, because if I was getting fooled knowing how to read the language of ingredients by buying different products and swiping up an influencer culture and being at the grocery store and seeing a greenwash package saying, like clean and natural, it's, of course, any consumer is going to have such a challenging time with that. I'm a huge fan of the farmers market. I just did a podcast 2 weeks ago with the general manager of North Union Farmers Market, which up in the Cleveland area, they have about 6 around the area. There's one in Oberlin around here that we went to recently. Jeremy's working, hopefully, on getting a farmer's market here in Amherst.
Talking about it. Maybe Amherst Township.
But one thing I like when it comes back to like simple tricks and tips is we're all going to shop commercially to some point, right? And when it comes to the real foods, like you mentioned, I always say a good way to really try to achieve that easier if you can't get to a farmer's market is to stay as close to the outer edge of the grocery store as you can. The closer you get inside is going to be those foods that are packaged that have to sit on the shelf longer, that are going to have more ingredients and more preservatives. So just as a rule of thumb, when you're in that huge, massive store, try to do what you can to stick to the outside, to the real fruits and vegetables. The industrial meat is a real thing. That was the first thing I gave up when I, said, how can I not get cancer in my life? Commercial meat is directly correlated. And I stopped eating it completely for a while. My body and my hormones definitely felt it. And so I kind of committed to sourcing and learning the best sources for it. So, one of the reasons why I recently, just this week, launched a lifestyle detox course is to put all of these recommendations in one place for you guys. So, the first module is actually on clean eating, and I have multiple resources in there of all the farmers markets in the area where you can shop online for delivery services if you're not local or it doesn't work for you on those times. So, I just want to empower you to know that you have options to source safely and achieve this whole food clean diet that Jeremy's referring to. And, what I love about our relationship is it's been built off of cooking together. I mean, that's one of our favorite things that we love to do. We don't drink, and like to each his own, but it's just not something that works for my body or yours. And so we cook really delicious meals. We love going to the different farms and meeting the farmers on the weekends and procuring the products. It really becomes this fun, energetic transfer, not only with your relationship, but in your community. And I think can be really empowering and cool.
So to finish answering that other question too about other steps for living that holistic lifestyle. So yeah, number one, eat whole foods, stay away from sugar, flour, seed oils. Two, it's exercise. It's always movement. It's always one of the best things. And this is something they're seeing more and more with some of the longevity research is, even compared to nutrition and supplements and all these things, like exercise is your most powerful tool for aging well. And a lot of it, it's not that, I go to Planet Fitness and walk on the treadmill for 20 minutes watching TV. It's that daily movement where you're outside, you're moving the body, you're gardening, you're hiking, walking the dogs, doing things. And then couple that at least with a few resistance training exercises, so everybody we put on these programs, like resistance training is pretty much non-negotiable. You have to do some kind of pushing, pulling leg, whether it's bands or machines or free weights. I want everybody incorporating some kind of resistance training. And then sleep, I think a lot of times gets overlooked, even though it's getting a lot more attention now of like, get that 8 hours of deep sleep a night, get the bedroom cold, get the bedroom dark, eliminate distractions, keep your phone out of the bedroom, and really try to prioritize getting that 8 hours of deep sleep. Total game changer in every aspect of your life with your energy, your mood, your hormones. It's just something I used to kind of slack on that a little bit, just like, no, I get up at 5 a.m., I get my workout in, and I would get short on the sleep, and now trying to really prioritize that.
Mhm.
And then stress management, is just like, it's such a tricky one because people tend to live so overscheduled now and in a hurry and in their heads and just like constantly absorbed in these thought loops throughout the day. So, I'm a huge fan of meditation, having a regular meditation practice where you're getting into a space where you can kind of learn to observe your thoughts rather than just being tied up in your thoughts all day, learning to stay present, spending time in nature. That was one of the big reasons I campaigned and got elected last year, is to try to preserve more green spaces, so the area has more parks and opportunities, trying to create this environment where it's generating health instead of generating sickness.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think stress is such an important point. I mean, I could speak for myself. I really became focused on the physical side of things and making sure I wasn't eating chemicals and, reading the ingredients and all of these things. But I was also in a really high pressure, exhausting corporate job. I was traveling all over the world and running myself into the ground from a stress standpoint. And you can be as healthy as you want to be physically, but if you're not emotionally and soulfully finding ways to improve your peace of mind as well, you can really still find yourself in those states of disease or disease. Meditation has personally changed my life. I can't say enough great things about it. It is a huge part of my detox course, not only from books to read. I know, some of you guys who I've connected with in the audience, we've really shared resources together on ways to reconnect back to yourself. It allows you to truly change the decisions that you make. And get out of this external chaos and make those better decisions for yourself. I also think finding that joy, in your day-to-day life,
Mhm.
and whatever that is, we call it like golf balls, where if you think about a jar and you put sand in the jar, you want to have the golf balls in the jar. What are those things that are non-negotiable that really bring you joy? And you put those in the jar first and then fill the sand around it. Because if you put the sand in first and then try to stuff the golf balls in, they won't fit. So prioritizing those things that bring you joy, whether that's being with your dogs or your kids or gardening or being with your friends. There's so much power in that dopamine that you get from just living in a happier way, and it can't be underestimated.
Yeah, purpose and meaning. I think there's just this whole crisis in this country now where people just kind of have this lack of purpose and don't necessarily feel that calling, and that
Mhm.
that I know for me was just a big game changer. I used to be more externally driven with, achievements and building different things, accumulating different things. And coming to that realization of how empty that is, like as you achieve more and more and hit these huge goals that you have and just have this lack of purpose that comes from it, it was a big shift for me of like having this like, this sense of a divine calling. And it's like,
Mhm.
it's not about me anymore. It's like, this is what I'm here for.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's my life now. It's all just everything is purpose driven.
Yeah, I
And,
wanted to ask you more about that. I know you mentioned it when Rose asked about Amherst, but your purpose, I think, really speaks to the way you're moving now in Amherst and what you're trying to bring to the community here.
Mhm.
So, when you talk about really like what that dharma and purpose is for you, what is driving you, and how is it now changing the way that you're going about your business ventures?
Yeah. So it's, life's funny. It's kind of this long winding road, but it was always something where, I was always in love with service and helping people, but it was kind of a little bit more on a superficial level. And as I got further into practice, I'm 20 years into practice right now, and it was something else, a couple of years ago where I was just like building and growing and having all these things, but just not really feeling that, inner fulfillment. And it was a journey, a kind of a spiritual journey, if you will, and digging deeper of, what is this concept of dharma and the Bhagavad Gita, and like getting into some of these deeper spiritual texts and Christianity and everything else, where it's just like, we do have a calling, and that was a shift for me, is feeling like we're not here to just try to build wealth and sit on a beach and get drunk and live an easy life. Like, we're here to love and serve and spread kindness and help people. And once I really internalized that, it shifted everything for me. And, feeling this calling to be a healer and to help people end suffering, it basically just made me eliminate everything else that in my life that wasn't in line with that. I quit watching news. I quit following sports. I quit drinking and like the whole going out and all these like trying to escape from life with these superficial things, and it really radically changed everything for me. So there's a big difference, when I wake up on Monday morning going to the office, it's like it feels like a calling to me. And that's, why getting in all these businesses, like it'd be very easy for me to just, stick with chiropractic. I love chiropractic. I love adjusting patients, and, whether I make a very good living doing it, I get a lot of joy from it, but people are coming in and they're so sick, and nobody else is helping them. So it's like, that's what kind of drove me into functional medicine. And then with the cafe, is just like, there's nowhere to go. Like, I'm trying to educate people on how to eat healthy, and there's nowhere from Cleveland to Sandusky that follows even basic parameters where you can just walk in, order food, sit and eat, and
Mhm.
have a truly healthy meal. There's a lot of, fake healthy places that
Right.
advertise, that what they're doing, but you go behind the counter and it's all, everything seed oils and Hershey syrup and everything that they're dumping in there. Everything's just, highly processed and packaged. So it's like, I'm going to create this. Like, I don't know anything about the restaurant business, but we invested a lot of money into that. And we have like the coolest, healthiest cafe around
It really
now.
is.
And same with, the yoga studio that I open, is like, people need to move, and yoga is a great body and spirit, where it's like it in community, that's one of the things I love about the yoga studios. It's primarily women, but it's just like I met so many nice people there. Like people are getting out of their house, away from their screens, coming in and getting with like-minded people and moving together and breathing together and having this, just like great spiritual connection and moving their bodies and doing something healthy. And then, on with the Align Pilates Reformer Studio that we just opened, it's a lot of what I preach in the chiropractic, physical therapy world. It's, core strength and glute strength and movement patterns. They have these cool machines that you could do it on. So it brings people together. It gets people moving. It gets people healthier. And the cinema, the reason I bought this movie theater is community. It's like, yeah, we serve some things that don't meet my, parameters, like at the
Working on it,
in the
though.
concessions, but we're giving people healthier choices. We're homemaking teas and juices, and I'm trying to switch everything over from the seed oils to coconut, which has been a more complicated process than I thought, but we're getting there. And having homemade foods and stuff in there, but it's a gathering place for people, where we can do like this. We can show health documentaries, things like that. Is why I got involved in politics too. It's like you drive around now, and it's like, my God, there's not going to be anything. There's not going to be a tree left in this county if somebody doesn't stop it. So you just watch one development after another come in, and it's like, where's the green space? Where's the parks? Where are the kids going to go play in the woods anymore if we can't stop some of this? So that's another, role that I felt drawn to, and we're working on getting, another metro park in town here. We have some meetings going with that and some other, projects we're going just to create a healthy environment. It's something like, the further I've got into practice with this stuff, it's like people don't necessarily need more education. They need a simple path. Like people know you shouldn't eat a donut for breakfast. They know they should be exercising more, but it's like people become largely products of their environment, and it's like we like to think we're not influenced by commercials and television and the radio and the ads and all these social media things, that we think we're autonomous and we're making our own decisions, where the reality is we are largely products of our environment. So if we can create a healthy environment, we can create healthier people. And so that's something, I've done in my own life, and something that I'm trying to do more in the community. And it was kind of a weird, funny story, but I was at the zoo years ago, and I was watching this gorilla, and gorillas are jacked, they're like very muscular, very lean. And I'm looking at his environment, watching what he's eating. He has, they're trying to mimic the jungle for him, basically. And you see him, and then just happen to walk over there from the gorilla place to the food court where all the humans are eating. And you see this different environment of people are just sitting here, and it's French fries and cheeseburgers. And you just see, like, we really are products of our environment. And these billion-dollar companies, like, they're not stupid. They know how to influence us, and these, especially the marketing to the kids by these, like the cereal companies and candies and everything, that like these marketers don't spend billions of dollars influencing our buying decisions because it doesn't work. People are, and like, you go drive down 58 over here, you got 40 different fast food joints within a couple miles of each other. And it's just like, people are going there for a reason, and it's all marketing. So it's something that I really try to push with patients, is like, you a lot of times are mindful of what you're putting in your body, but what are you allowing in your mind? Like that's something that I really changed. Like I don't ever watch television. I eliminate commercials. Social media, we do a lot on social media with the different businesses, but I don't scroll on social media. I don't have TikTok and, whatever things on my phone, like going through it. Cause that stuff is like, that penetrates in there, and it gets into
the products.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a great, true way to think about it. Is like, people think social media is free, and it's like, nothing's free. There's always something being sold, and that's what's being sold is your buying behaviors and your thought patterns, and we just don't realize it. But the reason that everybody's going to Chick-fil-A on the way home is like because they've been influenced by marketing, and, not to just single that place out, but all of these places. It's just like, you got to protect what you allow into your mind so that you're making conscious, healthy decisions, and not just reacting to the environment because it's quick and easy and that's what everybody else is doing.
Yeah. And because I think too, it's convenience, right? And it's
convenience,
easy. And I think that's where it's so cool what you're bringing to the town because there is this level of health that is available to us on a convenient level still. And your whole mission is healthy made simple.
It's everything. Yeah.
And when you go to the cafe, you'll see on the wall kind of like the food rules and all of the artificial dyes that aren't in the products, no seed oils, no high fructose corn syrup, these standards that you set for your restaurant, yet they have an incredible chef. The food is absolutely fantastic. It's quick and easy to go in, pick it up, take it to go, whatever you want to do. And I think that's the beauty of it is if I sat in these rooms in these chemical companies for consumer products, and I said, why can't we just use the better for you product? Why do we have to use the Teflon when the ceramic exists? And the same response always was the consumers don't want it. And that's why I really shifted, and for my dharma, want to educate and empower consumers that every little choice that you make creates a market for better. It creates more of these types of places to open up, and the next generation to not have the same growing disease, but to do the opposite, and hopefully together living longer and better. Are there any other healthy made simple standards that you want to leave the audience with when it comes to accessing this healthier lifestyle?
Standards, yeah, I think we kind of touched on all of them, but it's basically it's keep it simple. It's just reviewing that, eat whole foods, sleep 8 hours, don't smoke. Ideally, don't consume alcohol. If you do, it should be a one drink every once in a great while kind of thing. It's carcinogenic, neurotoxin. It's gut health affecting. I think that's just a big one in our society, and it's definitely trending down right now. But alcohol is just one of those examples of something that's just it's so pervasive, and it was just something I always saw. Going through college, everything alcohol is everywhere. It's consumed at every event, every day for everything. And it's we just do it because everybody else is doing it, and it's you escape a little bit, it makes you feel good, but it's you're literally poisoning your gut, poisoning your brain, and consuming a known carcinogen on a regular basis. And it's just something that everybody accepts, So it's kind of that, as we educate ourselves and learn more about it, we can make better decisions. So it's just yeah, you got to move every day, eat real food, get your 8 hours of sleep, and spend more time in nature, and just, and incorporate a meditation practice. And it's literally you can solve easily 90% of health issues with those, 4 core things. And then, if people are looking to get tested, it's there's huge value in that. Even if it's just once a year, just run a deep battery of tests on yourself and see what those levels are. And it's black and white. Here's what this is. Here's what that is. And what to fix it. Homocysteine, another good example of just something I just saw really high on somebody, big red flag, easy fix, that'll make a big difference.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And what's so cool, and what I noticed in my life, just meeting you and, a lot of the people here in the audience today, is when you start to make these lifestyle changes, even if it feels like you're the only one in your group that's doing that or your social circle that's doing that, you start to attract things, jobs, people, energy into your world that's in alignment with that. We really are energetic beings. And when we live in a way that's intentional, we attract new intentional environments around us. And that is such a powerful thing. And I think what we want to continue to do is cultivate this group of people who are conscious individuals who want to live healthy and help each other. And, we might have some resources and other people might have other ones. And, together we can really build world where healthy is the norm, not the outlier. And it's such a powerful thing.
Join us. Yeah.
Join us.
Join us so we're not so crazy.
Yes. I want to live in a world where, it's crazy to not be healthy.
Yeah. I like that.
Because it's possible. And I think that's what's so cool. And that's, hopefully what I hope to leave as my parents' legacy is, helping other people know that you don't have to be your diagnosis, that there's an opportunity to shift. So we have a couple resources we want to leave you guys with as we start to wrap up, and then we'll do a little giveaway. From an ingredient standpoint, body, mind, and soul approach, I launched a course. It's called the Lifestyle Detox Course. It's basically everything in one place of how to clean up your lifestyle in very simple, tangible ways, from grocery lists to personal care to books to read. And it's a really great place to start so that then when you go to a functional medicine doctor, you have the energetic frequency that's ripe for that healing. I know Jeremy's launching or has launched a new program called the Vitality Method. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so basically, it's this lab panel that I custom put together. There's 95 markers. It gives you just a really nice, deep, in-depth understanding of your health. We couple that with an extensive health questionnaire so that by the time I'm walking into a room with a new functional medicine patient, I have this massive amount of information. I know what they're eating, what their health struggles are. I have all their labs. And the vast majority of times, like when I'm walking in the room, I know how to fix them already and exactly what we have to do to optimize their levels, how we're going to tweak their nutrition, how we're going to modify their exercise, what they're struggling with, and then create that custom program to be able to help them out. So,
And then give access through the cafe and the studio and
yeah.
businesses.
So we
It's like
have
all
programs
online.
where we can incorporate yoga and Pilates and cafe and everything together now too. So,
Amazing.
but everybody just starts with that baseline assessment so they can really get that deep understanding of what's kind of going on below the hood, so to speak.
Very cool. So we have
Mm.
some pamphlets outside if you guys want to take one of those and learn more about the Vitality Method and how to access it. We're going to do, if you want to shop online for the collagen, you can use Raw 10 for 10% off. The detox course is 20% off for this first launch week. I would love to stay connected with you all. I want to continue to share and educate and learn with more resources locally, not only from real experience, but other experts like Jeremy in the Northeast Ohio area and beyond. So please follow the podcast. I have social media at Raw the Pod. My social media is at TheCheekyClean. You can like, subscribe, and follow on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Where can everyone find your socials?
So we have a lot of them between all the businesses, but the best I would say is just go on the Instagram. It's just Dr. Jeremy Watson on Instagram. There's Watson Wellness page, Doc Watson's Cafe page, Align Pilates Reformer pages, Doc Watson Studio pages, Amherst Cinema pages, Vitality Method. So it's kind of all over the board, but the best one is probably Dr. Jeremy Watson, Instagram. And we do a lot of healthy made simple tips, things you can incorporate on a daily basis, how to eat, how to move, and just, simple little tips to live a healthier lifestyle.
Amazing. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for being here. Please stay in touch. DM me anytime. I'd love to connect with all of you guys and keep learning and growing together. Jeremy, thank you for everything you're doing here in town.
Thank you.
Very grateful for you for joining and opening up a space like this for us to connect in real life.
My pleasure.
Thank you, guys.